All right, there we are. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Erasmus Expeditions. This is going to be the first session of the second heat of our Highlander tournament using the Reflections game system, which is itself based upon another RPG by the name of A Single Moment by an individual named Tobie Abad. Definitely go check those out if you like this kind of game. So far, it has been very, very interesting, super riveting. We've had 4 deaths thus far, catapulting 4 Immortals forward into this round. 2 of those individuals are meeting on the field tonight, and only one of them will walk away at the end. So, before I get too much further, I'm going to toss it over to these 2 players, let them do their introductions, plug whatever they would like, tell us who they're playing, and then we'll go over a little bit of business, and then we'll get started. So, Jeff, why don't you go first?
Yes, I'm Jeff. I have my own YouTube channel. It's called Encounterbalance. If you want to check out my stuff there, I also do a podcast with our wonderful host here, Jeremy, and our friend Chad Nick, called The Dudes of Yore. So feel free to check that out as well. A little birdie has told me that there may be a new episode within the next couple of weeks, maybe 2 weeks or so. That little birdie is me. We're gonna record another episode soon, so be on the lookout for that. Um, yeah, I am playing Sir John Bennett, an Englishman born back during the time of knights, who has now weathered the storm of the first round. Had some intense moments last time, so I'm looking forward to seeing how that will affect John going forwards and how this next round is going to play out. It's really interesting to see the compacting of the first round into the second round as the stories get more complicated and more intense. So really looking forward to it.
Yeah, it'll probably be a little bit more work to try to weave them together so that everything that happened in the first round for both of you stays consistent and true. But I have full confidence that you guys will be able to do it with maybe a little bit of help from me. I'm probably not going to be much help, but we'll see. All right, next up we have Keel.
Hey gang, I am Keel, and I'm stoked to be here. Still hard to believe that I made it through to round 2. knocked Lloyd off in the first heats, but yeah, excited to be here versing Jeff again on Jeremy's channel, and yeah, looking forward to this one being a little bit different to the first heats because we've got all the sort of existing threads to weave around past, present, and future. So that's going to be really fun, and it'll be interesting to see how Jeff's character, Sir John Bennett, and my character, Henri Manet, go with each other and against each other by the end, because they seem to have quite similar philosophies on living forever and humanity and things like that. So we'll see how it goes.
Absolutely. All right. Like I said, the 4 of these that we've already done have been just so surprisingly diverse, and many of them very emotionally heavy, which has been a real pleasant surprise so far. And I cannot wait to see how this one's going to turn out. So first, I will say that this is an adult game, that these are both adults, as far as I am aware. And we are playing a game where people are going to be trying to cut each other's heads off. So if bad language and mature topics and gruesomeness and all that kind of stuff is not your bag, then go find your bag elsewhere. Tonight I will be taking a slightly different role. If you've watched all of these already, then you already understand what I'm talking about. But I'm not going to be GMing in the traditional sense. I'm going to be more of a facilitator. I'm just going to kind of set up the different scenes, and I will be here to adjudicate whether or not the objectives were meeched. Man, see, it's a good thing I'm not running this game. If the objectives are met in a scene, if it comes down to a disagreement, which I don't think it will. It hasn't thus far. So, there's only really 3 rules. The rule of action is that once somebody speaks it into existence, it exists. You can't do anything to undo it. The second rule is that one player cannot force the other to take actions. You can have stuff happen to them, but you can't have them do anything. And the third rule is that the characters, cannot die until the final duel, at least not permanently. Before we get started, do you guys have any questions?
Not about the game, no. Just wanted to make sure I got my timeline right before we jump into the first scene. Yeah.
Sure, absolutely. You guys can hash it out if you want.
Just to make sure that consistency is met. We're in the same places in the world at the times that we were.
Yep.
So I've got an actual timeline that I'm trying to flesh out in front of me now. We just spend maybe a couple of quick minutes breezing through.
Yeah, no
so
worries.
Henri was first killed, spoilers from the first heats, in like the 1100s, 1200s. So he would have been born around that time. And I think your first appearance was in feudal Japan. Is that like the 1800s?
Yeah. So yeah, the first scene was I don't think we said. I think it was like very late 1700s, very early 1800s kind of era.
Yeah.
I don't think that there was a hard line that was drawn, but kind of around there. And I think I mentioned offhand that he had been alive for about 300 years or so before that.
Oh, awesome.
So it would have been around from 1500s, 1600s ish. But we didn't actually explore any scenes there, so there's nothing to conflict in that area.
Cool. I think I know where our first scene might be set then. Which I'm just Googling the French Revolution dates to remind myself. Because that was, I think, where scene 2 for me was. So that's, yeah, late 18th century.
Yeah, I think in
cool.
late 18th century, I'm locked into being in England. I think kind of in the turn of the century as the 1800s go into the 1900s.
Oh, of course. Yeah. Yeah, cool, okay. Cool, all right, so it'll be sometime earlier then. Between like
or
1200s
yeah.
and like 1700s, yeah. But when you would have been first killed and became immortal anyway.
Yes. Yeah,
Cool.
that would be well before all that. And
then sort of mid to late 1800s, Henri was in America, like the Wild West sort of area, which when you, John was over there in like the gold rush.
Yeah, so I think it would have been a little bit later if my timeline serves me. Kind of a little bit going into the 1900s when me and Aaron's character, whose name I'm blanking on, ended up over in that area. Yeah, we did make it over to America and then over towards California on the West Coast. Yes.
Cool.
Yeah.
So at least we'll both be on the same continent in the 1800s.
Yep. And then I know it's confirmed that I had some involvement in World War II, though I did not have any scenes there. That was kind of revealed in character later on. And then I'm back in America in the 60s. I think that's all that I'm specifically locked into.
Cool. In World War II, Henri was over in Europe in like the 40s and 50s. And then from the 60s onwards, John's pretty open, isn't he?
Yep. After that, it's pretty much wide open. I had the confrontation with Shinji in the 60s, but what happened afterwards is yet to be determined.
All right. Was there anything else, Jeremy, that you had in mind or that you can think of there?
No, that sounds pretty solid to me. And, it leaves us plenty of wiggle room to kind of decide where these things are going to all fall and take place.
Cool. I think I'm all set then.
Then if you guys are ready, we will begin. From the dawn of time we came, moving silently down through the centuries, living many secret lives. In the days before memory, there were the Immortals. We were with you then, and we are with you now. Throughout the history of men, there has been a secret war waged by powerful beings known as the Immortals. Most of these beings live out normal lives, with no knowledge of their true nature, their true power. But each of them carries within themselves the seed of their immortality, which is only triggered upon death by unnatural and violent causes. It is only when they experience this first death that they become immortal. Immortals can only be truly killed by decapitation. When one immortal decapitates another, the winner of their battle receives a transfer of power from the deceased. This transfer of knowledge and experience is called the Quickening. Eventually, all immortals must cross blades and do battle until there is only one left alive. The survivor will receive the prize, which enables its winner to gain unlimited knowledge of the universe. In the end, there can be only one. The prologue sequence in Reflections is stated at the beginning of the game and at the finale. It starts with both immortals facing each other, ready to have their final duel, and recounting the events that brought them to this moment. Each player reads aloud the first part of the statement and then gives their answer immediately following. This call and response is how the two players will set the scene for our upcoming story. So I believe both of you have already determined who player 1 will be and who player 2 will be. So whenever you are ready.
Yes, I will be player 1, I believe. But all right. Yeah, if you're ready, Keel, I'll go ahead and get the prologue started here.
Yeah.
All right. Our paths first crossed on the fields of battle in England in 1600s.
Now we stand upon the wreckage of a plane as rain pours from the sky.
I remember when you were someone who fought for the same cause that I did.
This feud started when you lost your way and your purpose.
I'm not sure if I missed it, but I didn't actually hear what was said there.
Oh, sorry. This feud started when you lost your way and your purpose.
My name is Sir John Bennett. I'm a knight, fighter for the people, and I'm here for your head.
My name is Henri Manet. I am ready to die. but the prize will still be mine.
There can be only one.
There can be only one.
Excellent. All right. For these successive sessions, there is going to be an alternate scene 1. I have already described or explained this to the players, but I am doing so for the audience, which thank you for tuning in, by the way. So instead of it being the first death, as each of the pairs previous have already established the first death for one of the Immortals, and taking the chance of accidentally having to stumble through that in the second round. Instead, this scene is going to be called When Paths and Blades First Crossed. This is the time you first met. You did not know each other before, but somehow you found one another, another immortal. A challenge was issued, but something occurred that prevented either of you from emerging victorious. Perhaps one of you took pity on the other for some reason. Or perhaps you found that you had to suddenly work together in order for you both to survive. Perhaps you parted afterward for decades or even centuries, but your fates were linked forever from this moment. Strive to establish at least a modicum of trust between you throughout this scene. Also, think about who you are and in what period of history that this takes place. I sent you the objectives in the messenger. If you would just look them over, make a choice, and send that to me. And once I have both of them, you guys can start us off with scene number 1. All right. I hear lots of blooping. All right, cool. I have
the
them
finger on
both.
the trigger.
Excellent. Way to go, guys. So, whenever you're ready.
So I think this is during the 1600s. As said, this is when we first met. It's during one of the presumably many wars between England and France, where Sir John Bennet is serving as a soldier, a nobleman, a knight, but still a warrior. And I think at this point, I have not yet died.
Okay. That's cool. Yeah, Henri at this point would be still living also as a knight, albeit a one that doesn't stick to the code as strictly as Sir John might. So let's set the scene. What are some good things for English 1600s battlefield scenarios? Imagining like a countryside kind of thing. Henri wouldn't necessarily be in some French forces, but perhaps he could be. I know the English and French used to fight a lot, didn't they?
Yes, quite a bit.
So perhaps they are on opposing sides then. All right. Henri's with a unit of cavalry, and they've just routed maybe some English forces, but then turns out it was like a false retreat, and we're perhaps ambushed by some English forces that Sir John is with.
Yeah, it's part of a bigger strategic ploy where they've basically chosen to sacrifice these infantry units who have been led towards this cavalry charge, supposedly unknowingly, but in reality, they were tipped off. They received information from scouts showing that the cavalry was moving in this direction and that they were going to be prepared for it. Yet the lives of these civilian warriors are still disposable in a way. And I think Sir John Bennett is among these people. They formed up a block, a spear block, to try to hold this cavalry line for as long as they need to. Meanwhile, it's opening the way for the English longbowmen to make their way to siege on French camps while their cavalry are out on this charge. And Sir John Bennett would be like yelling orders, trying to keep people in line, keep weaponry in place as the cavalry begins to charge towards them.
And there's the thundering of hooves loud in Henri's ears and rising louder in Sir John's own ears as the line of cavalry comes closer. And Henri draws, near the head of the charge, draws his cavalry saber from its scabbard and holds it out in front with a battle cry. They crash into the English forces.
Yeah, there's like a sickening crunch as the English forces, despite orders from Sir John to stand and hold, not many people can stand against a cavalry charge without a twinge of fear. And part of the line begins to break as the charge approaches, breaking their hold, breaking their wall, and it's a slaughter. The charge immediately begins to smash through the lines, and John has actually mispositioned himself. He's supposed to be out of the front areas during this part, given that his status is important that he stays alive, or that at least if they lose, that he's kept for ransom instead of killed in battle. But due to a mistake of his own, he is not in the back. He is near the side and the front as this charge hits.
And as the line breaks just before the impact, Henri takes advantage of that and spurs his men in to widen that gap, slashing from their horsebacks down with their sabers and just cutting down Englishman after Englishman. As some are screaming and fleeing, some are swinging back themselves. I imagine there's maybe some pikes or spears, which did help brace against some of the charge, but mostly it might be swords and things which are less effective against a charge. And suddenly Henri finds himself toppling, and suddenly he's on the ground with the wind knocked out of him, and his horse barely misses landing on the lower half of his body. His immortality has already come about by this point. He's been immortal for a few centuries already by now, so he's well and truly used to fighting, knowing that he can't die unless a lucky shot takes off his head. So quite agile, he rolls and gets to his feet, hefts his saber in his hand, and continues cutting down Englishmen that are coming towards him.
Yeah, I think Sir John catches note of perhaps your horse in particular, I imagine that you would have quite a bit of status within the army, and maybe your horse had more barding and what's the I don't remember the right word. Like some sort of banner, indicating that you're a commander, and he would see you fall, and kind of in the chaos, would hope that if they can't, if their force is being routed, if the English are being routed, that at the very least he might be able to take back a nice ransom, for his lord, in you. But he would radically underestimate your ability. He's fought many skilled warriors, many other knights, many even well-learned infantrymen. But there's a difference that comes with centuries of experience that a normal person can't understand. Uh, and he would approach cutting. I think he even like lands a hit on you. Maybe you don't see him out of the corner of your eye. And he like cuts down at you, expecting you to be felled in an instant. But somehow, uh, perhaps his eyes deceive him. He doesn't understand exactly why or how, but the blow does not fell you. It hardly even seems to do anything. And he would kind of take a step back, confused. I think that's when he doesn't know what it is, but this strange kind of feeling, this like weird tinge, this sixth sense about you seems to strike, but he's unable to place it, not knowing yet what fate lies him or you.
As your strike takes him, he doesn't, without knocking him or felling him as you may expect with such a blow. It does obviously get his attention, and he turns with a hard glare at you, eyes wide and his face splattered with some blood from in the heat of battle. And he, as he's hacking and parrying and kicking enemies off of him, and he takes this particularly strong strike, he's swinging and turns and halts his arm in the air, halts his blade, and it glistens in the sunlight. As they kind of lock eyes, Sir John may not be familiar with what this feeling is, but Henri certainly is. He's come across other Immortals before, and I think he can tell that it's a bit different. He can tell that you're not yet, you've not yet had your first death, and so you've not yet sort of been activated, as it were, as an Immortal. And he knows he should just probably take you out, continue fighting, and then see if he can come back and maybe find you after the battle and see if you've come back to life, as he expects that you would. But instead, in the heat of it, he gives you just a kick in the chest to sort of shove you away, as he then turns and continues fighting, and glances back at you to see if you're wounded or getting up.
Yeah, I think Sir John is easily caught off guard again, despite being experienced to a normal man, being vastly inexperienced compared to an immortal such as yourself. You would be easily able to best him and knock him down. I think it's in the chaos of everything, the cavalry, the horses charging, the eruptions of battle, that even without being struck down by sword, he would likely be trampled in the coming things, like his armor, his knightly armaments holding him down. And then it's not too long after that the chaos of battle consumes, the thundering of hooves, stamp. Whether or not he dies, you're not sure, but he gets lost in the shuffle, definitely.
I like to think as well that the ambush that was played out by the English on this single unit of French cavalry was more or less successful, I like to think. And so, although heavy casualties on both sides, especially with the infantry unmounted, getting trampled is as much a danger as a blade or an arrow. And so I think maybe of Henri's cavalry unit basically get routed themselves and don't have an opportunity to collect Henri, and his horse is gone. So by the time he notices that his men are in the distance, it's kind of too late, and he looks around frantically to see if there's a horse that he can take. Doesn't know who gave the order to to break, but they've done it all the same.
And as the crowd begins to disperse, almost I think both sides have kind of now become confused in the chaos. Like English were being routed, people were fleeing. So there's even forces of many English soldiers who continue to run, not understanding that the other side has been routed as well. There's kind of this strange situation where both sides have begun to flee and converge in different areas of the fields, understanding each side having their own victory in their own minds, while different portions believe failure has just come just as quick. But as there's kind of this scattering in their area, I think that's when it would become clear that at some point Sir John had in fact been trampled, uh, or perhaps finished off by some spear blade uh, thrown down onto him as he lay there.
Yeah, finding no horse to make his own escape. That awareness of the present comes back again instead of this desperate instincts to get away now. Back from the quickening, or this, that he felt from this man that he locked eyes with on the battlefield, and he picks through the dead and dying men and horses, and walks past the partly crumbled windmill stone tower, and finds you trampled or otherwise in a sorry state. Just beside that, the tattered windmill spinning slowly, as if ticking down the grains of sand that seem to remain on John's time. And Henri looks around, expecting some of the, even despite the confusion, expecting some English officers or some English forces to come and apprehend him. As he's clearly an officer, he would probably want to be questioned. And he, at this point, he sees none, and he goes over to and crouches next to John. Looks over his wounds. Is John conscious?
This is probably around when he's beginning to regain consciousness. That he's fallen, fell into the darkness. But now the haze is just now beginning to part from his mind, as awareness is kind of returning to him. Um, that kind of grogginess that comes when you just wake up, followed shortly by confusion. As I imagine he would look around to just see countless people dead across the fields, armies fleeing on both sides, and then perhaps most curiously, a single French officer standing over him.
And I think Henri can tell the sort of different feeling of the quickening in John now, and he can tell that he's sort of died and come back to life. And he says with a grim smile, face covered in, splattered with blood, and cuts of his own. Did you see anything on the other side?
Just out of curiosity, what language do you say that in?
Good point. He's been around for a few centuries, so I suppose he would speak English, but maybe out of habit. His native tongue is French, so yeah. Let's say he says it in French without realizing.
Yeah, I think there's this confused look on John's face as he begins to kind of like prop himself up on his hands instead of laying fully on his back. And he would say in like the most broken possible of French with the worst pronunciation, "I don't understand."
Simultaneously wincing of mother tongue and blinking in realization that he'd asked in French in the first place. He repeats it in English. Did you see anything on the other side?
The other side. What do you mean the other side? I think you would get the sense that it quite hasn't dawned on John exactly what's happened.
And a wind picks up and the blades of the windmill start spinning faster, symbolically showing John's sort of return to life. And Henri looks up at them, takes a fond breath of the clean country air, ignoring the smell of blood and death. You are born anew. You have died just now. And he gestures down at your wounds. And you probably see that you have been trampled at least partially and run through at least once. And there's more blood. You're in a pool of more blood than you'd know a man could survive losing.
Yeah, he would kind of reach up at his neckline below the armor and kind of pull at a chain where he'd pull out a crucifix and kind of like look at it, confused, wondering for a moment what has caused him to be reborn in such a way. But I think there's kind of this feeling further down that tells him that that's not the resurrection that he's gone through. He doesn't know how he knows, but something kind of pings in the back of his mind, in the pit of his stomach. And he'll just let it fall, still outwardly visible, but no longer in his hand. And just kind of like look up in confusion. Died.
And looking up, he sees that grim smile still on Henri's face. Some blood dripping from the tip of his nose as he looks down upon you. Yes, and he claps a hand on your shoulder. You died, and you are back. And he grins to himself, briefly reliving a memory that Sir John may never know, that a friend once told him. Now,
You'll have to tell me more. I don't understand. But and I'll kind of like look around at the now distant chaos, but chaos nonetheless.
there will be time enough for that. Plenty of time, you will see. Come, let's get you to your feet. and having seen your own wounds now, it might be far easier than you would anticipate getting up after having apparently died and just come back to life.
Yeah,
and he would say as much, actually. There would be pain, but not as much as you might think.
Yeah, he would kind of stand and like kind of stretch himself out, get accustomed to moving again. Confused at, like you say, exactly what you say, how easy it is. Not feeling the cracked bones or the bruises as much as he would expect from something so serious. And he would just kind of nod slowly. Should go somewhere to speak, but whichever side we go to, English or French, one of us will be an outsider, an enemy. If I go with you, I'll need you to swear that you'll protect me from them. I won't be an enemy in your lands, well, at least while we talk. I'll kind of like look down again at his blood-soaked clothing. You've bested me. Clearly, there's much that I can learn from you. But I'm still an Englishman.
Lose him?
I think we might have lost Keel.
Oh no!
Damn.
Yeah, this thumbnail looks like it's frozen.
Mm-hmm.
No. Damn you, Australian internet. That's what I'm blaming.
Yeah.
Or maybe he's actually frozen, which could be worse. Oh no! It dropped him.
Hopefully he's back real soon.
Yeah, he sent me a message. Let me see what he says here. Yeah, he said he froze. He doesn't know what happened. He's going to reboot. So he'll be right back. After these messages, we'll be right back. So thank you, everybody, for tuning in to watch this. This is really exciting. We're just kind of starting to ramp up here, and I'm kind of really, really eager to see how this is all going to pan out. I like how it ended up being a first death anyways. That's really cool.
All right, you back?
Do we have a Keel?
Hello? Maybe.
Uh-oh.
He looks frozen again.
Yeah, he does. No. So, yeah, very, very interesting that it ended up being a first death scene anyways, which is great because, I mean, it is a staple of the Highlander stories, and it's always fun to explore that with a character, especially since you didn't get to in the first go-around.
Yeah, I was just going to say that was something that at least was interesting to me to be able to see, like kind of being the mentor figure in the first round. And once I heard that Keel's character was going to be much older than mine, I figured it would be very easy to kind of flip the script on that one, and kind of get to see a little bit of my coming up into it versus the kind of teacherly role last time. So it'll be kind of interesting to see that relationship, if that's how it goes.
Yeah, and I think, if I'm not mistaken, I think it was Keel who had his first death. No. Oh, no, he may have had his first death scene where Lloyd was the older of the two. I think that's the way it played out.
Yeah, that was correct.
Hey!
Hey.
All right. Sorry. Oh, my God.
Oh, you're good. You're good.
Why is this happening for me so much lately? I'll keep my cam and that off just to avoid that extra lag.
Okay, sure thing.
So where did you stop hearing what I was saying? I'm not sure what part you caught.
You were saying we can't go to either side, and
yeah,
I think that was
the Cliff Notes version. Was John has basically proposed that he follow you, so that you can kind of teach him what's happened to him, but he wants to be sure that he's not just going to be taken prisoner the moment that we get to France. So he wants your word that you'll teach him and not capture him.
I have a nice setup, you could say, back home in France. You will be safe there. I can promise you that. But we cannot go back together. I can give you some details, some instructions. We can spend some time together now. But there's something I must do first. But I will meet you over there. After some time together now, if we make it through this countryside alive.
Well, with your knightly word, then I will take you at that. I will meet you at this place of yours. We can discuss the meaning of all this. I'll try to quell my curiosity until then and hide the questions from my mind, or I might lose it otherwise.
If we make it to nightfall, I will tell you the essentials that you must know tonight. And then we can go into more detail about what this all means in France.
You've already bested me quite handily in both sword and knowledge. Perhaps we can discuss both.
And that grim smile creeps across his face once more. I have much to teach you. Come.
Perfect. I think that's a good scene right there.
Yeah.
It feels kind of like the end of the scene to me. All right. So if you guys would go ahead and reveal what your objectives were, we'll go over whether or not you managed to achieve those for scene 1.
Convince your rival to swear an oath or vow to you.
Yep, yep, yep.
Yeah, I would definitely say that you got that.
Yeah, for sure. Mine was get your rival to save or spare your life. Did not.
Yeah, I would have to agree. So what that means is Sir John now has 4 dice.
Yeah.
And Henri has 4 hatred dice. All right.
All right.
Would it be 4 hatred dice? I thought you got dice to the level that you committed to. Or am I?
No, the same level that you succeeded in. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, it's the same number of hatred dice that your opponent achieved.
Got in
unless both of you did not get your objectives, and then you each only get 1 hatred dice.
Perfect. All right, that was a misunderstanding on my part then.
Yeah, not a problem. Cool. All right. So that was scene 1. Scene 2. Are you guys ready to dive right in?
Let's do it.
Yeah.
Excellent. Okay. Scene 2 is strength in numbers. Immortal duels are always one-on-one. Interference is forbidden, even on behalf of a friend or lover. But the quickening makes an immortal weak and nearly defenseless. For this reason, many travel together in pairs, so that should one of them fall to a challenger, the second can immediately take revenge. This is usually enough to discourage most immortals from issuing challenges. For a time, you swore your sword to one another, to take revenge on any challenger that may succeed where your friend failed. In this scene, you should each establish the trust that your current relationship is built upon. So look over those objectives. Pardon me, whenever you have one, shoot it over my way, and then you can roll out the scene once I have them both.
All right.
All right, you go ahead and kick this one off.
All right. So I think we both made it back to France, and so Henri's not. He's arranged a place for you to stay nearby where he lives, but it's not. Maybe it is like on his estate or his on his estate that he's got there. But it's sort of a smaller dwelling on like a field or foresty kind of part of his property, maybe. I guess basically a comfortable enough garden shed or work shed or something like that that he's offered to put you up in. And in terms of timeline, I'd say this will be probably not too long afterwards, maybe a year or a few years at most. So still like in the 1600s. So before the French Revolution, that's the goalposts that I've got here. So not too sure what was going on in France at that time, actually, but
Feudal things.
actually, yeah. I think maybe so we've been together there for maybe you've only just arrived. You've only been there for a couple of days, and some of the sort of lessons, because part of Henri's promise was to sort of train you, obviously not just in the ways of the Immortals, but also train together in swordplay and things like that. And so maybe we've been going at the training and the imparting of knowledge pretty hard since you arrived. And as a bit of a break from that, maybe there's a circus or a menagerie or something like that, which Henri is sort of taking you out to as a sort of night on the town, and as a means to go through some of the stuff rather than just in a one-on-one environment, out in the real world, and talk the philosophy of what it means to live forever. You want to go from there?
I think we're kind of out, just kind of a large crowd, as the celebration is kind of happening, the performances are happening. It's drawn quite a number of the common people there to see it. It's a public show, so anybody is kind of allowed to see it. It's not necessarily a noble thing. And I think we've kind of both disguised our status, at the very least. John has. I won't speak for Henri. To ensure that they're kind of blending into the craziness. I think John would kind of look out as perhaps a street performer is like juggling and a dancer is nearby, as kind of these like thrum of basic like drums and tambourines play, just kind of creating a rhythm for these people to perform to. He would kind of look out, not quite hollow is the right word, but kind of dejected in a way. And he would look. Would he see any enjoyment on Henri's face at the performance, or would he be more stoic?
Oh, Gil, you still there? Oh no.
Oh no, did we lose him again?
Maybe. Let me see. Yeah, he said he just dropped again.
Ah,
Bleh. So yeah, we got pretty healthy crowd tonight. Thank you guys for tuning in to watch this. Looks like we got let's see who all. We have Jason, Megan, Dave. And Jeremy. The other Jeremy. Karen. Carol. Josh. Yeah. Man, a whole bunch of people. Joey. Man, awesome. Sincerely, thank you guys very, very much for tuning in tonight and giving us a watch. Keel, you back? Uh-oh. Yikes. Well, hopefully he can get that sorted. I've been in a similar situation before, and it's incredibly frustrating.
Yeah, I know the feeling all too well.
Yeah.
Okay, I think I'm back.
We have you?
Yep, I can hear you.
Oh my goodness. So sorry, everyone.
Hey, it can't be helped, man.
All good, man.
Hopefully it hangs tight this time.
Where did we lose you on that one?
Oh no.
Oh, did he drop again?
Oh no. He's not muted, but I don't hear him. Heartbreaking.
Yep.
Oh no. I don't know what to do if you can't get it to stabilize.
Yeah, I was gonna say this isn't like most games where you'd have three other
Right?
players that you could kind of continue to riff with for a little bit, but
Yeah. Okay. He said he's going to try
this
a
is the whole
full-on
show.
reboot. Yeah, he's going to try a
Alrighty.
full-on reboot, so hopefully that'll work. You know what? We're going to go ahead and take a break.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
So I got to go to the bathroom anyway, so we'll give Keel a moment to try to get this thing under control. So hang tight, everybody. 5-10 minutes. Refill your drink, go to the bathroom, etc., etc., and we will be right back with any luck. Okay. I am back. We'll give the other gentleman just a second here. Hopefully, Keel was able to get his ducks in a row with his intranet. Otherwise, I would have to say welcome to the Dudes of Yore live recording 5.5. No. We'll just have to imagine Chad's here. Do. Yep. Well, hopefully we won't lose too much momentum here. Speaking of momentum, just kidding. God, that would be a horrible segue. But yeah, Momentum's next session is this coming Friday, which I am really, really excited about. We kicked that off about a week or two ago, and it went really, really well. I'm so pleased with what the players in that game have already brought to the table, and I know it's only going to get better from here. So I'm really excited to see where they end up taking everything.
Woo!
All right. Seems to work for now.
Yeah. Oh,
Cool.
Yeah, I don't even.
Oh, dude. Like I said, I'm blaming Australian internet.
Yeah. I blame that for loads of stuff. All right. So I've had to close down the YouTube chat as well, so I won't be able to see what's in that. I'm just on minimal stuff here. Let's just tick on through.
Put a tinfoil hat on and stand on one foot.
Exactly.
Yep. Well, hopefully it works, man.
Yes.
We'll give Jeff Deathman a minute or two.
It's only frustrating for me because it's inconvenient for you guys and everyone. So.
Oh, no, man. Like, I think when I ran my Caldera campaign, which was like the first games that I used this channel for, it wasn't an official session until I dropped out. Like, as the one running the game. Like, I think it happened just about every single session. So I completely understand what you're talking about, but you don't need to stress about it.
No worries.
Alrighty.
I've got yeah.
We're pretty laid back here at the Erasmus Expeditions.
Well, all right.
All right. Got my bongos. Time to strip down and play some music. All right.
Alrighty.
You guys ready? Yeah, I think so. Whenever you're ready.
Yeah.
Alright, so I'm not sure exactly where we lost you, Keel.
Yeah, so so we were sort of setting the scene for the like the circus, the traveling circus that we were going to, and you said something about some acrobats or street performers, and it was about there.
Yeah.
I dropped out.
Yeah, so I think we've kind of come across one of these little bands that have kind of broken out, kind of leading up to the bigger show. There's like a juggler and a dancer who are like dancing and performing to like this very light kind of rhythm section, just a couple light drums and like a tambourine that are kind of rattling out a simple rhythm. And there's kind of a crowd gathered, kind of looking in enjoyment at the performance that's shown up. And John would kind of look over, not like with hollow eyes, but kind of dejected almost in a way. And he would kind of look, and I had asked, would Henri have any enjoyment in his face at the performance, or would he be kind of stoic about it?
Yeah, he would definitely have enjoyment. He'd be seeking some entertainment and some vibrance from this outing. Yeah, and he's already enjoying this troupe that they've found.
Can I ask you something?
He's smiling whilst watching the performance and says to you without turning his eyes away from them, but of course.
Yeah, I think at this point, if it's okay with you, you've kind of at least generally told me like how long you've been around, kind of characterize.
Of course, yeah.
It's okay. And he would just kind of like look over. For a while, I thought my life was two purposes, that of my Lord and that of my God. That's all that there was, a lifetime of service. Yet you have lived centuries, seen countless lords, perhaps even countless gods. And yet, you still see joy in a street performance of common folk gathering and celebration. What's kept you so strong of purpose? Seems like everything has fallen. I'm not sure where to follow anymore.
And now he does turn his eyes from the performers and looks at you squarely with a smile, but this time not a grim one as when we first met, but a friendly one, like a consoling kind of smile. Sort of a knowing smile as well. If I am to live for however many more centuries, I intend to fill that life with as much enjoyment as I can. And I know others of our kind who do the same, but their form of enjoyment usually involves pulling others down and creating destruction. And I must say I've played my part in that, and I may yet continue to do so, but my true way that I keep going after all these centuries, and for how hopefully many more, and the way that what you must hang on to, Jean Benet, is that zest for life. And a couple of a man and a woman dressed as acrobats, clearly performers, who are making their way towards like maybe the big tent where clearly the large show is, possibly making their way there to perform later. He eyes both of them, and his smile widens and he looks back to you, especially Love.
There would be a moment where he would kind of just continue looking off towards this crowd. His face kind of still. And then as the words that you've said kind of sink in, he has a moment to think them over. He would kind of look down at the ground and then up to you and give like a genuine nod of appreciation, perhaps the most genuine that you've seen him yet. Not that he's not that he hides his sincerity, but something about what you say seems to strike a meaningful chord with him. And he'll kind of nod mostly to himself, but also to you at the words. Um, and I think the moment is kind of broken as like a kid like runs between us, like running ahead from his family to like move towards the circus tent. And as the stillness is kind of broken, he would kind of look up and smile. Uh, the sternness of whatever clouded his mind kind of breaking into a enjoyment of the situation as well.
And his own smile widens, seeing one make its way across Jean Benet's face. And he nods approvingly. The most important thing that you must remember if you are to survive and make the most out of the centuries you will live is always to smile, even if it's in defiance of the world shitting upon you.
He would laugh, but then kind of nod. Yes, centuries are a long time to be sad or angry or frustrated. It's going to be eternity. I might as well make the most of it, the best of it.
Exactly. And these people here, see how they live in the moment, see how they seek enjoyment, they thrive upon it. It's all too easy staring into the void of eternity to lose that zest, to let it all slide into nothingness. But we can learn a lot from them by living with them. Come, Jean-Benet, and he tugs you on the arm and starts dancing to the music, to the beat, like clapping his hands and sort of stepping side to side and like trying to, and waving his hands up a little bit in front of him, like trying to get the crowd clapping along. Probably to some glares from the performers themselves, thinking we might be trying to steal some of their patronage. But people are sort of turning and looking and clapping along, and other people will probably be joining in dancing as well. Come, Jean-Benet.
Yeah. A look of like flush embarrassment would kind of show up on John's face as you kind of so jovially join in on this dance. And he would pause for a moment, hesitating. Like so used to this kind of like stoic warrior mentality that he's not sure how to respond to like such open, joyous celebration in this way. But after a short moment, and perhaps some slight more prodding from Henri, he'll like reach in to one of his pouches and throw like perhaps even a generous amount of money at the feet of the performers, and then join in with your dance very awkwardly. It's clear he's not used to such festivities like this, and he would not be a good dancer in the slightest. Um, but he would at least release a little bit of that inhibition, kind of recognizing your words and your wisdom, and would join in.
And Henri would be laughing and clapping along, yes, and cheering you a bit as you join in. And he would get the crowd's attention, maybe hold his hands up very briefly while still sort of moving along to the beat. Jean-Benet, do as I do. And he addresses the crowd. And they will tell us, they will cheer loudest for the best dancer. And he does a bit of a spin and a little bit of fancy footwork and sort of gestures to you. Now it's your turn.
Yeah, there would be another flash of flush embarrassment as now attention has kind of been drawn to them specifically in this crowd. He's now signed up for much more than he's bargained for, unknown to him. But he would do his best to like emulate your move. Like he wouldn't try to like iterate his own. He would just try to, as best as he could, do what you did.
Yes, now you're getting it. And he steps to the side and gestures to you to, now you, gesturing for you to pick the next move that I have to then emulate.
Yeah, I think he kind of falls back into what he knows in a way. He would kind of break down into what would like at first be like it would be a roll, like almost like a somersault, but very much like a warrior's somersault, very like methodical, as if to avoid an attack. But kind of as he stands up from it, would try to put the slightest bit of flourish into him rising back up from it, not knowing exactly kind of how this whole process can and should work, but trying his best, and would just kind of like awkwardly like look over, like, was that like what was supposed to happen?
That's great. And Henri's like clapping and cheering you on loudly and vibrantly. And then he goes to mimic the moves that you just did and slips like one of his feet slips out from under him as his false foot and false lower leg sort of comes untied a little bit, and he stumbles and isn't quite able to recover himself in a similar sort of way. And the crowd goes ooh as he sort of stumbles and falls down to the ground. And then Henri, still down on his knee, just gestures over wildly to and says "Jean Benet," clapping for the crowd to declare you the winner.
Yeah, he would kind of like make a show of his arms would kind of go up in a flourish, but his face would still be like very not stern, but reserved, almost embarrassed at the attention now drawn solely to him, as even Henri has now deferred the crowd solely to John. But he would kind of give a tepid bow and a smile, and then kind of break out into a laugh at the absurdity, but like genuine enjoyment that's come to him out of the situation.
Henri just straps his foot back on and climbs to his feet and gives you a big clap on the back and pulls you in for a hug and pats you on the back happily. And I think the only reason, because you said you gave some coin to the performers just as we were approaching, so I think that's the only reason they sort of let that carry on as long as it did instead of ceasing to play.
Yeah, I think it's kind of like a mixture of generosity and like not knowing. Like he's lived a noble's life, so he's used to certain amounts of money having certain amounts of pull, and kind of forgets that scale in the presence of these performers who are probably used to much less form of currency. So he probably gave like way more than would be expected. So they were probably quite generous in deferring to their shenanigans.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, with a hand on your shoulder, Henri would then lead you towards the big tent to go and enjoy the main show that he's bringing you out to see as well, and starts telling you of duels between immortals and how only it has to be one-on-one and all of the rules surrounding that.
Sounds like maybe that could be seen. Yeah.
Yeah.
Works for me,
yeah. Awesome. Cool. So both of you, if you would, go ahead and lay out what your objectives were for the scene, and we can go over whether or not you achieved them.
Let your rival win a contest between you.
So.
Yeah, I believe you certainly did so. Okay. So that will earn Henri 3 dice. Go ahead, Jeff.
And mine was convince your rival to give you some advice, which I believe also I did as well, kind of with the opening questioning.
Yes, I would certainly say so.
For sure, yeah.
So that would bring Sir John to 6 dice by my count. 6 dice for Sir John, 3 for Henri, and 4 hatred dice for Henri.
Correct.
All right. You guys ready to go straight into scene 3?
Yeah.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Here we go. Scene 3 is The Bond is Broken. The players describe the moment when this conflict first began to manifest in RB, where one of you directly betrayed the other. Perhaps it was driven by jealousy or mistrust. Perhaps it was simply born out of a misunderstanding. Pay special attention to the circumstances leading up to the situation. Could there have been another choice? If yes, explore what that choice could have been. And if there was no other choice, why is it that neither of you can now let it go? Take a look at your objectives. When you have chosen one, send it over my way, and once I have them, let's do it. This is usually a really, really interesting turning point in the story. All right, I heard some dinging. Okay, excellent. I have both. So when you are ready.
I think we're kind of bumping right up against some timeline stuff here. So correct me if I'm off track, but I think this is like right before whatever part that Henri plays in the French Revolution. I think this is kind of like right towards the very start of the outbreak as things start to turn sour. So it's been quite a few years, I think probably decades at this point that have passed. And we're like at the tipping point where France is about to kind of turn into turmoil as the revolution will take full hold.
Yeah, that sounds great. So that puts us like, yeah, like a century or more, I think, ahead. French Revolution, late 1700s, I've got, so cool. So, so I think after the first few years or first decade or two of spending quite a lot of time together, training and enjoying our shared philosophy of living life and having fun and those kind of things as best we could. I think it probably didn't take too long for Sir John to establish himself enough in France to either find his own place, or he had the desire, I think, to move out of the the hunting lodge or the whatever shack it was on Henri's estate. And by this point, actually, Henri is very getting very wealthy. And as things are sort of bubbling up and the French Revolution is sort of coming to a boiling point, or, about to, come to a boiling point, that's probably been a bit of a point of derision maybe between them. But I think, not necessarily any hard feelings at this point, but Sir John wanted his own space and, to start carving out his own life for himself now that he's established a bit more.
Yeah, I think we are currently at your estate that you've managed to build for yourself. Sir John has, at this point, you would know that he's kind of lived much more of a simple life. He hasn't gathered much wealth. He hasn't assumed much power. He's kind of found this weird point where he's lost some of that kind of knightly nobility and kind of not become a commoner entirely, but kind of seems to sympathize more with that crowd than with the others. And I think it's been perhaps some time since we've spoken, not years or decades, but we've kind of gone our own ways slightly for a little bit. But he would kind of be coming in for a visit, perhaps about half a year since we've seen each other.
Yeah, maybe you got an invitation from Henri to attend like a stupidly extravagant ball or something like that. Something that's at this point quite grating to you. It seems like all Henri does these days. If there's two paths or two sides of a line to walk in living life to the fullest and enjoying it, Henri's definitely erring on the side of opulence and things like that. So you'd be coming up to Henri's estate, and you'd see row upon row of horse and carriage out front. Like you'd see the stables are overflowing. You'd see that there's lights in the windows, in all of the windows of his mansion or whatever it would be. And people sort of, the party's sort of spilling out onto the lawn and everything, and there's lots of people dressed in finery, people walking around with trays of hors d'oeuvres and trays of drinks, alcoholic drinks, and there's he's probably got like animals and people performing out even on the front lawn. Like it's just this huge event, and even if you haven't been to any of these things or spoken to Henri in some time, you would know that the rumor is that this is something he does like every week.
Yeah, I'm totally in on Jeremy's suggestion in the chat too, that this is like a masquerade ball.
Oh hell yeah, awesome, yeah.
Yeah, I imagine that
truly.
at this point John has managed to find some sort of finery to dress himself in. It's far from the most extravagant outfit, but it's at least befitting of the situation and would not be like embarrassing to you to show up in. And his mask that he wears would actually be carved from wood. It appears that at some point he's taken up that as his trade, and he's actually carved his own mask for the occasion. And has like kind of painted it himself to match. And it would kind of be at like what would be like the minimum acceptable level of niceness for the affair. Like not a single bit overdressed, but not quite to the point where it would be disrespectful or that he would like stand out noteworthy, like in a noteworthy way. And he would kind of approach this like huge estate with all like performers already outside dancing, people drinking and celebrating. And he would just kind of frown to himself and like imperceptibly shake his head, but would approach the estate nonetheless out of obligation.
Yeah, and I think most of the other people that have clearly been invited to this thing are of either nobility or money from whatever background. They're all dressed in like over-the-top finery, like pearls woven into their garments, kind of finery, that kind of over-the-top stuff. And you definitely feel their eyes sort of looking down upon you, and you're barely making the cut sort of outfit. Get out. Sorry, dog's playing havoc. But but you do get some admiring looks, I think, on the mask that you're wearing. And as you make your way up through the crowd, serving folks, bringing you trays of small, bite-sized, tiny bits of food and glass flutes of drink. You would spot a huge congregation over near an extravagant water fountain out in the front of the manor, and like in the front courtyard, and people standing around, sort of clapping along as you see a man, looks to be about the height of Henri, wearing a very elaborate peacock mask, sort of strutting about on the stone ledge of this fountain, or the marble ledge of this fountain, entertaining the crowd.
John has taken a drink from the tray, but he does not sip at it. He's merely taken it out of respect for the offer, and has done similarly with some small bit of food that he like holds half eaten in his hand. But would kind of approach the crowd that's gathered around you. And I imagine there's like something about your voice that like cuts in a different way, like he just has one of those voices that can kind of be heard if you know what to look for or what to listen for. And you would hear kind of that sound, which would draw his attention towards this huge crowd that's gathered around him. And his eyes would kind of roll to himself at all of this that's happening, but would kind of approach the crowd to try to at least greet you respectfully.
And I think he spots you as you sort of make your way into this little crowd that's surrounding him. And he sort of finishes with a flourish the little song that he was performing, and does another final clap of his hands beside his head, and steps down, clamps a hand on the shoulder of some of the people gathered around him as they sort of start to disperse and talk amongst themselves and move over to other attractions at the event. All holding, some replace their masks back onto their face as they'd taken them off to watch. But as Henri steps down, he removes his mask as he looks towards you, holding one of his patented smiles, genuine smile in having to see you, getting to see you. Welcome. I was not sure if you would be able to attend. What a fabulous, fine event, wouldn't you say, Jean Benet?
Yeah, he would remove his mask in kind of giving a light flourished bow. Ah, Monsieur Manet, quite the place that you have here. He would say kind of like outwardly to everybody, but then as he approached kind of within a closer earshot so that the crowd's eyes and ears were not on them, he would just kind of lean in and say, and I imagine that this is the first time that he's been to one of these. He's perhaps heard of them, but has not actually shown. Perhaps if it's okay with you, this is actually the first time that you've invited him.
Yeah, for sure.
And he would just kind of like lean in and look around. Is all this really necessary? It's like quite a show.
Thank you. Yes, quite a show indeed. Bigger and better every week. Ah, says as he nods hello to someone passing by, pats them on the shoulder. Too much. I can only imagine where you are living now. You could not stand the beauty and vibrancy of my estate any longer when you moved away. Where are you staying now? It was difficult to get a message, an invitation to you, he says, only kind of half meaning it.
Yeah, so I've lived not quite as opulent a life as you. I've built a simple place for myself on the outskirts of town. A simpler life, perhaps. He would kind of again look around at everything, and he would kind of lean in, and a bit of a stern seriousness would kind of come across his face. You know, on the way here from my place, walking to yours, I encountered 3 families begging for just a piece of bread, that their children might not starve. A tiny bit of scrap for money they might buy clothing for their family and their children. You think perhaps some of this wealth might be better spent in other places for other people than on performers and drinks, and there's so much turmoil.
He studies your face for a few long moments, the smile never leaving his lips, maybe only dimming slightly as you get your message across. And he says, "Have you stopped smiling, Jean Bonnet? What was it that I told you? You stopped smiling, even if in defiance of a world, of a shitty world. This is the kind of line of thought you will send yourself down. I cannot help everybody."
With the amount of money that you spent on this party, you could help hundreds. Is that not enough? Maybe thousands. Does not take much. It's easy for you to smile when you have so much, but there are many people who do not have that luxury.
And he sighs heavily. The smile not completely fading, but clearly it's now, instead of a natural smile, it's now more of a forced one, trying to follow his own philosophy there, swallow his own story a little bit. These families that you saw on the way here, Jean Bonnet, do you think they never smile? They have each other. They still have their lives.
They do for now, until starvation kills their children, until sickness kills a husband and can no longer provide for his family. Will they smile then? No, they will not smile then. Sometimes it's not about having your own smile, it's about doing what you can, bring that to others. Something that I thought you meant to teach me, but perhaps I was mistaken. You can smile away your own pain, but you cannot smile away theirs.
Nod along thoughtfully. You have much wisdom, Jean Bonnet, for one who is so young. He delivers that last with a bit of a bite in his words. So,
my apologies. I meant no disrespect. Perhaps I should not have come. But I wanted to deliver a warning. People of your place will not be welcome in France for much longer. You see, when people live enough where they cannot smile, instead they will turn to anger. I'm sure you've seen it. I've seen it. We are about to reach a point where this money will not keep you smiling. And the people that you surround yourself will not keep you smiling. And I do not say this as a threat, or even necessarily as a friend. In fact, I don't know why I say it. But I'm here nonetheless. Smile while you can. And you kind of gesture to the festivities around. Celebrate. Now. I don't think things will be like this for much longer.
I think he steps in and closes the distance between you and sort of grabs your shoulder maybe a little too roughly, or your arm a little too roughly, and pulls you in close. And says, the smile now completely gone from his face, and replaced with a bit of contortion of anger, and seething just beneath the surface. I have he gestures towards the manor. Leopold and I, well, Leopold has been speaking of leaving France anyway. you would have me. What would you have me do? You would have me sacrifice my own happiness, sacrifice my own value within my life to help those of others who, yes, we can learn from them, and I have learned much. As he sort of squeezes your arm a bit more, as perhaps a bit of a reminder that he's been around for a few hundred years before you were even turned. There's that tone in his words. I know what I'm doing here.
I've found much joy in helping these people that you frown at now. Are you so different from me that you cannot find any enjoyment in the helping of others, only in the helping of yourself?
He releases your arm and sort of breathes heavy and stands up straight, smiling over to a few of his guests who were looking this way, concerned, waving them away with a big smile. Claps you on the shoulder just to try and show that everything's okay. And looks you back dead in the eye. Surely you have heard more than rumors of these parties that I hold. Living for this long, Jean-Benet, and his words come out as if he's, in his mind, imparting another lesson of wisdom or philosophical profoundness. But he says it, and he says it as a matter of fact, more or less. There is only so much that we can learn from something that never changes. You may not have heard these other rumors, but let me tell you what else I've been up to. If you're beginning to look down your nose upon me, I will let you leave when you're ready. Have a drink, have some food, but know this. My enjoyment of this life, and I intend to live for hundreds of years more at least. It lies with me. I must make my own. Come down to the poor district. Well, perhaps I will run into you there, if that is where you're living now. See myself and my friend Leopold strolling in our finery down the streets. Hear the things that they say to us. We are there. Sometimes we give coins, sometimes not, but always they start fights with us. We must put them in their place. No amount of coin that I give to these hundreds of people you suggest I could do instead of holding one party. It will what? Feed them for a week? And then what? They become dependent upon me. I would burn the world and use my soul as kindling if I could have people live in peace and harmony upon the ashes. That is not how the world works.
You say that these people, you think they do not try? The system is rigged against them at every turn. They survive the sickness that's laid upon them, the tainted waters that they're forced to live in, the squalid houses that barely stand. They manage to work. Their wages are kept by rich factory men like you who keep them down. This is not a game of generosity or lack thereof. It's power. And while you may hold it over them now, starving dogs will not lie forever. Eventually they will bite. And then we'll see what happiness there is. As you say, we have an eternity. Well, these people don't. It doesn't make you better automatically. You can be better, though, if you work at it. Looks like you've stopped working. We have eternity. I plan to use it for better things than getting myself drunk in the presence of performers and rich folk. And while no single act of good can change the system, perhaps an eternity of good acts can. At the very least, I'm going to try.
He sort of like shrugs his hands in a bit of exasperation. So it seems you have taken from me a lesson that I did not even intend to impart. So be it, Jean-Benet. You and I both know that we, immortals and humans both, always have a choice. Yes, we must play with the hand that we are dealt. And it seems we've both made our choices. Though, I must say, I'm still glad to have met you, Jean-Benet, and to have known you. And I'm sure we will see each other again.
I'm going to go away, somewhere far from here. East, I think, for a time. See different people, help different people. It'll be some time before I'm back. Hopefully when we meet again, we'll be on better terms. I'm sorry to have disrespected you in your own estate in such a way. I'll leave you to your fun, your games while you have them. He'll turn to go to leave.
And he'd sort of call out to you, not too loudly, not to make too much of a show of it in front of his guests, but I am glad to have known you, Jean-Benet. I do not regret meeting you. We'll see each other again. And with that, he turns. Actually, he with a sly grin, and knowing how much you sort of hate being the center of attention, he applauds you out of the party. Jean-Benet, everyone! And people, some people just turn confused. Others just sort of clap along, not really knowing what. But there's a very odd mood as you leave the estate.
Yeah, and he would leave the undrinking glass that he had taken of alcohol and just like put it clearly on the table, even as the crowd looks at him. And just walk, just like deadpan out of the room.
I think like we might focus on the glass for a moment and then pan up as the glass like slides out of focus, and we actually see Leopold standing off to the side of the room, kind of having watched at least the latter part of this conversation take place.
Yes.
Yep.
Love it.
Well done, guys. Awesome. Okay, so go ahead and lay out your objectives, and then we can get dice sorted and roll straight into scene number 4.
Alrighty. Mine was convince your rival to show how they are fundamentally different from you, which I think
I
pretty clearly drew a line.
Yeah,
Definitely.
I would say so. In spades. So that earns Sir John another 2 dice.
Yep.
For a total of 8 by my count.
Yep.
And Keel.
My objective was convince your rival to express regret in having met you. That didn't quite manage to do.
Yeah, I don't think so. I think you skated really close a couple of times, but I don't think the expression of that feeling ever came out fully.
No, definitely not. Yeah.
Okay, so
I think sadly for the objective, that's not actually at least now true yet. Like I saw you.
Yeah.
Right.
I would have tossed it to you if it was there, but
Yeah, no, that's fine.
All right, so that should earn you another 2 hatred dice for a total of 3 normal dice and 6 hatred dice by my count.
Correct. Yeah,
Awesome.
that's what I've got.
Cool. All right, so you guys ready to go straight into scene number 4?
Yeah.
Excellent.
I'm all set.
Awesome. All right, so scene number 4 is it doesn't have to be this way. There was a moment when forgiveness was an option, when one approached the other in an attempt to mend old wounds. Who sought this meeting? What event, historical or otherwise, brought it about? In this scene, you have been brought back together on friendly terms, and you remember better times. This is an attempt at making peace, though the sting of the past is still there. Through the scene, it should become apparent that things simply cannot be how they once were. You don't yet know when the time will come, but eventually this relationship will end in the only way it can for an immortal. What happens during this meeting to bring that conclusion ever closer? Now, I will say that there is some strong similarity in the way that this scene is set up with the scene that you guys just played through. So I will leave it entirely up to you guys whether you want to play through this scene 4 or skip it altogether and move on to scene 5.
Interesting.
Because scene 5 then goes directly into the role. So if we skip this, then we're then going straight into our final scene.
Straight into the end, yes. But we can absolutely establish this 4th scene and run it, and it probably won't end up having quite as many similarities as may initially be apparent. But I wanted to put that ball in y'all's court.
Yeah, no, that's a fair point.
So what would be interesting is if we were to go to the final scene straight away, which I'm fine with doing. I could even see it being like a good idea. Would be that we would then be skipping ahead quite a bit. We would basically have 200 or 300 years of absence from each other, which I think, given our timelines, actually kind of makes sense. It seems like we're both very busy.
Yeah.
The coming area.
Yeah, and I mean, yeah, we may have been in the same place or at least the same continent at certain periods throughout our timelines, but yeah, I kind of like I think we can maybe go straight into the final one, and that then gives us a bit of agency to maybe sprinkle in some bits and pieces. We weren't necessarily not in contact, during those 300 years or so. So we can see how it plays out, if you like.
Absolutely, and you guys certainly could have gotten together, even at some points through that. It's just not scenes that are being, fleshed out here in the story. So, okay. Are you guys settled then? Is that what you want to do, is go on to scene 5?
Yeah, I'm happy to do that if you are, Jeff.
Yeah, I'm cool with that too.
See how we go.
Excellent. In that case, we will be skipping straight on to scene 5, which is Who Wants to Live Forever? The final conflict emerges, and the rivalry boils over. Memories of the past mean nothing. The hope of peace is gone. And the only possible conclusion can be a final death. No longer friends or allies, you now stand across from an enemy. Where does the duel take place? Does it have special meaning to either of you? When setting this scene, you should reference the prologue of the story, as it should correspond with the "We stand upon" declaration. This setting should be inspired by the events that occurred in the last 3 scenes. All of the emotion, the passion, and the hatred from the entire story culminates here. All key components should come together to form this scene. This is it. After the last sword strike, you have reached the end of the game. So if you would, look over your objectives for scene 5. Make sure that it is, in fact, for the scene titled Who Wants to Live Forever. Whenever you have chosen them, send them over to me, and then I will let you guys begin. Okay, there is one. And all right, I have them both. So whenever you gentlemen are ready.
All right. So since it goes straight into our duel, the prologue declarations said we are standing upon the wreckage of a plane as rain pours down from the sky. And so this will be classic finale. So this will be, it'll have to be after both of our previous duel victories. Because, yeah, we have to both survive. We've both survived until now. So it'll be, so yours was sort of in the early 60s, and mine was in like the early 2000s. So it'll be sort of modern day-ish around now, give or take a decade or so maybe. And location-wise...
I have an idea, if you don't mind.
Go for it.
We are in France, and we have gone to kind of outside of a lot of the city area, and where the battle, I think it was of Verdun, took place in World War I, where there was just like some insane amount of artillery shells. We're on like this open like French countryside, but there's like craters and like explosive holes and like undetonated bombs and stuff like all over this field that's now uninhabited. But we know that it poses no danger to us. We're kind of surveying this like now almost decade-old carnage that we've outlived by centuries, even a piece.
Yeah, that's great. And so there's some plane wreckage involved. So we could go ham and have it as both of us were passengers on the plane, perhaps Henri up in first class, and Sir John in coach. Perhaps knowing each of us knowing that there was another immortal on the plane. But obviously there's strict security. It's a strict security situation, so I suppose our swords would have been packed in the in the storage luggage. So, and something went horribly wrong in the plane. It crashed, and it happened to crash in this field. And since it's a finale with rain on such a landscape, let's say that it's night as well. That's always great. It was a red-eye flight. And so to be another one of those situations where probably we were the only two that come crawling out of the wreckage, more or less.
Yeah.
And yeah, just to clarify.
Sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to clarify, yeah. So it's on an old World War II battlefield, but the plane crash is modern. Yeah, we're in the like around 2010 sort of times or modern times. Yeah. But all of those artillery craters from back then in the 40s and 50s has just drastically changed the landscape. I remember hearing about that on a Dan Carlin podcast. It's insane.
Yeah. So I think at this point, so like the rain is starting to come down. It's not like a full downpour, but it's definitely noticeable in there. John has kind of crawled out from pieces of metal, forced his way through, kind of digging his way out where he can. And he's kind of like kicking over pieces of rubble, kind of looking through the wreckage of where he thinks that the storage of the plane would likely have landed in the crash, digging through burning, broken, ripped suitcases, just the clothing of strangers kind of littered out, personal possessions smashed to pieces. He's kind of kicking around, looking for his sword, which would have been under the plane, kind of checked on the flight. And he'd just yell out, "Whoever's there, I can feel you."
And it's difficult to hear anything other than the shout of your own voice with the pounding rain, which is not strong enough, not enough of a deluge to put out the flames of the wreckage that we stand amidst. And emerging from around the corner comes a figure. And you'd probably recognize him after a few moments as Henri. And he comes around the corner holding his hands up and out like unarmed, but saying nothing as he steps through the rain. Long hair, drenched and matted over his face.
Yeah, as John kind of turns to face, there's like this moment of silence as they both recognize each other. Having sensed the presence all along, but not being able to verify the identity, and now suddenly they're face to face of all people that could have been on that flight. Of course, it was him. Imagine there's this kind of like crash of thunder and lightning that kind of illuminates our silhouettes in the rain, and we get like a good look at each other's face in that brief moment. And the kind of curious look on John's face as he's digging through the rubble would turn to a frown. You.
Me, he calls out across the rain. And you, Jean-Benet. I had sensed there was somebody aboard in the cattle class. I had not thought it was you. I had not thought to find you here. Welcome back to my home. He gestures with his outstretched hands and spins a little bit, clearly meaning France itself.
Certainly seen better days. She's a lovely place, but time has not always been kind to her. A kind of gesture to the craters, and cracked landscape. He'll kick another piece of metal, of sheet metal from the plane off to the side and kind of kick at a couple more wrecked possessions idly with his foot. Wasn't expecting you to be here. All the people that it could have been, and it's you.
Well, there are so few left of us now. Would you not say, Jean-Benet? I'm sure you have taken a few of your own by now, a few heads of your own. Sir Jean-Benet.
Yeah, John would approach, not all the way up towards you, but walk in your direction a couple steps. You would see the look. His face is still the same face that you know, but there's something about his eyes that are not the same. The eyes of someone who's seen too much and knows more despair than happiness. Remember what you said to me all those years ago? Always smile. And he'd give like this really big, like over exaggerated smile, which would drop a couple moments after. Not much to smile at these days now, is there? Or I'm sure you find ways. What with your still throwing parties, still living the high life while people suffer beneath your feet? Or perhaps you've changed.
He does wear a smile, but you can tell as well in his face, as much as your own, perhaps, that the look in his eyes, even the way he sort of holds himself, is drastically different. And he just kind of scoffs. He's still walking towards you, so that they don't have to shout quite so much over the rain. But yeah, still a bit of a distance between them. A good what, 10 or 20 paces, I suppose. And his smile fades a bit, but it's still hanging in there at the corners. You must always smile. What did I say? Even in defiance when the world is shitting upon you. As the world chewed you up and shat you out, Jean-Benet, you think... He stops himself.
Try as it might, the teeth keep gnashing at me, trying to crush me, to rend me. But we both know it can't. That has not stopped it from trying. It's not stopped it from claiming many lives alongside me as we go. Friend, foe, family, all alike. All gone. Trusted friends. Beloved family members, children, left to die. All by this life. If you were me, you wouldn't be smiling now either.
Do you think I know nothing of despair? He reaches a hand into his coat pocket and pulls out what looks like a folded bit of paper, which is now getting drenched by the rain. As he opens it up and just holds it down beside him. And you see his face, what you were always used to wearing a smile, whether a genuine one of mirth or one of those smiles in defiance when things weren't going his way. now you see upon his face an emotion that you've not really seen on there in the time you've known him. His face, he just seems dejected, like his body language is sagging, and it looks like he's even sort of weeping to himself silently between words.
And tell me, all that money you managed to amass, all the life of pleasure that you managed to live, so much that you've done to buy happiness. Tell me, has it bought you happiness? Did that money bring you any closer to people that you care about? He would kind of eye you for a moment. Or perhaps, no, it hasn't, has it? Perhaps it's drifted you away from them. I see that your friend's not here. Lover's quarrel, is it?
When you mention his friend's not there, his eyes, he sort of snaps up a little bit and his eyes lock on yours. And then at that last comment, lover's quarrel, he rushes towards you. I think he would, or stride towards you, intent in his eyes. But he's clearly not holding his blade. And unless Jean does anything to stop him, he intends to just stride right over and just punch you in the face.
John would let it happen. And as you punch him, his head kind of knocking to the side, he would just. We both know that fists aren't going to get anywhere. Unless you plan to tear my head off by force, those hands alone. Punch all you like. Will do you no good.
As he had punched you, he sort of swung around, so his back was sort of facing you again as he sort of spun around and just he put a lot into that that hit. So he's shaking his hand as you do. And he looks at you just with this glare in his eyes, this terrible sort of look on his face of just anguish and anger. And I think maybe I could take your head, even with my bare hands, Jean Benet. The state that I'm in now, the quickenings that I have taken into myself, I'm more stronger than you can ever know.
I'm sure you've been very busy. I'm sure you know that I have not been sloth myself. Perhaps it would be better, he would say with sort of like a genuine frown that would come across his face, to have it all be over. To finally feel the darkness that everybody else has felt.
His face
Peace.
softens markedly at this suggestion. Like he's considering it. Like that sounds like exactly what he might want as you continue.
Ever since that one, he would just kind of shake his head. These quickenings. Power, yes, of course, is a word that comes with it, but it's not unconditional power. I feel myself changing, Henri. Becoming a different person. Person that wants, that craves. I think it came from that man, the one that I killed. Power. The thirst for it. I want to say it's not me, but part of it feels more like me than anything I've ever known. One way or another, I want this feeling to be gone.
As the rain just pours down between them and upon both of them, Henri just looks at Jean with, I don't know, I suppose a look of sympathy and pity and knowing, like it's clear between them that they're both sort of suffering in a similar way. And he sort of says, half to himself, they're close enough now that the rain doesn't hinder the noise or hinder the voice. I never expected, should have known I know that all of the memories, experiences of Immortals whose quickening I receive, I take them on, but I'd never known it would be like this. And the wind blows over, despite the rain pushing it towards the ground. The wind blows over the crumpled it's canvas, not paper, so it's intact enough. Photograph or painting, I think it is, of Henri and Leopold from however many centuries before, taped back, ripped into quarters and taped back together. And it would come into your view on the ground. And he sees it in the corner of his eye as well, and he averts his eyes from it immediately, looking down at your feet.
John would look down and see the photograph or the painting, as the wind kind of takes it into a crevice of metal and just destroyed objects from the plane. He would bend down to pick it up and spot something. As he grabs the scrap of painting, he'll kind of kick at the metal right next to where his hand lies. Huh. Convenient. And he'll lean down and grab the scabbard of his sword that's poking out from some of the rubble. And he'll kind of hold up the painting. It's almost like it led me. As if destiny itself has called out. And he'll kind of gesture up to the rain, as like another of thunder erupts. As he picks up the blade from like the middle of the scabbard, and just kind of looks it over. He'll look up to you. Have you found yours yet? As he begins tying it.
Wordlessly, he watched you retrieve your blade. Doesn't answer to your query, but instead strides over towards where you found yours, hoping that or assuming that they were probably packed near each other, since the airline would have known that they were both whatever dangerous objects or something. And sorry, did Jean pick up the photograph, or did he just see it there? He followed it there?
Yeah. He has it in his hand.
Okay.
Not like crumpled up, but kind of wedged in a fist.
Okay, yeah. And he says over his shoulder to Jean as he's scanning the rubble near where you found your sword. It seems we are both at an end. still too much drive in both of us to give up, especially with the quickenings that we have both absorbed. If it's me, I want you to hold on to that, or at least see that it's buried with me, or burned with me. And as he says this, a flash of lightning sees a glint out of the corner of his eye over in one of the nearby divots, or concaves in the landscape here from so many decades ago, when the world was a very different place. Yet still the same. The thought crosses his mind. A man who's lived for, 800 years by this point. He walks over and crouches down and finds his own scabbard there, picks it up, and it just walks back towards you, or to face you, leaving some space between the pair of them, holding the scabbard down by his side in one hand, looking dejected still. And he just calls out, "See that is done for me. I am ready to die."
The mercy of death, peace. Maybe I'm ready too, now, finally. And he'll take the painting, the scrap of painting in his hand, and put it into one of his jacket pockets. If you want this back, you'll have to take it from me, or die trying.
Does a slow breath as he sort of cracks his neck. So we are both ready to die, but as I say, both too much of fighters to let it simply happen. I'm sure we both have some of the quickenings of those we've taken on to thank for that, he says wistfully. Do not hold back, and I will do the same. If somehow I defeat you in the state that I'm in, then I can claim back my portrait and continue wandering the world. But do not hold back. And then he sort of readies himself a little more, but still just holding the scabbard in one hand next to him, and almost like a quick draw sort of thing, holds that his sword hand above the hilt, ready to grab it. And his sword it's this beautiful curved scabbard that you can see. It's very ornate, as you'd expect for him. And this beautiful handle protrudes from the scabbard, and it's his old cavalry saber that he's managed to keep with him through all these centuries. You know, I never named my sword. Well, I have now. Leopold may have one final kill yet. Now come!
Yeah, John will kind of reach down at the handle of his English longsword, made way back in the 1600s, a gift to him from his lord upon his knighting. The finely crafted, almost silverish handle is beset with a gem that depicts a lion, his knightly house sigil on the pommel. And his hand would kind of grasp tightly around the handle of the blade. And he would look up to you, say, well, if it's your friend's life in that blade, then let's see what damage it can do. More so than it's already done to either of us. Or perhaps it will fail like he did.
I think with that, and it being clear that Jean's not going to be the first to strike, Henri will be all too happy to take the bait and in one swift motion draw the saber and just let the scabbard drop. Doesn't even waste the effort and the energy sort of tossing it away. And immediately in one fluid motion as he draws it, he begins his stepping forward and circling around Jean, get the measure of him, ready to try and place his first strike.
Yeah, there's the sliding of steel as the scabbard comes off of his sword as well. We'll kind of hold the scabbard in one hand and kind of throw it down so that it sticks up out of the dirt upwards, and kind of hold the sword out in a stance back towards you.
And with that, I think we're ready to roll into our final moment.
Whew, I think so.
All right. So it may not be a surprise to anyone, but go ahead and reveal your objective for that scene, and we will determine dice before we start rolling them.
All right, on 3. 1, 2, 3. Get your opponent
Convince your rival to draw the sword first.
Every game, man. I think it's been every single game. It's so awesome.
That definitely was the same as last time for me.
Yeah.
Okay, so for
Just
Sir
such a good
John,
one.
that's 2 additional dice. That's going to be 10 dice as far as I can count.
Yep.
And for Henri, we have 3 additional dice, or normal dice rather, and then he'll earn 2 additional hatred dice. So 3 normal dice and 8 hatred dice.
The hate is strong with
All right.
By my count. So, do you gentlemen remember how hatred dice works and all that?
Yeah.
Okay. I am assuming, Henri, that you are going to be harnessing your hatred?
Yes, he will be. Yeah.
Okay. And then obviously, Jeff, you have no hatred dice, so it won't matter whether you harness it or not.
Yep.
Okay, then. If you guys would, go ahead and recount the prologue.
Yep.
One last time, and then we'll make this roll and find out what happens.
Our paths first crossed on the fields of battle when England waged war on France.
Now we stand upon the wreckage of a plane. Rain falling from the sky.
I remember when you were someone that fought for the same cause that I did.
This feud started when you lost your way and your purpose.
My name is Sir John Bennett. I am a knight of England, warrior of the people throughout time. I am here for your head.
My name is Henri Manet. I am ready to die, but the prize will still be mine. There can be only one.
There can be only one.
All right. So, first we will roll a normal dice. So, Keel and Jeff, go ahead and roll your d6s.
All right, 3. 3d6. Oh, that's sad.
That's a spicy
I have
one.
1 3.
Oof, yeah,
I have 3 6s.
3 6s. Okay.
Holy moly.
So, Keel, now you pick up your 8 hatred dice.
Can you hear him, Jeff? They're coming for you. 3 6s is a tall order.
It is.
Oh, 1 6.
Only one. Okay.
Nice.
So, between the two of you, you can decide exactly how this plays out.
So Henri was moving in with intent now and circling Sir Jean. But Jean was, I think, from what he described, sort of standing in a nice defensive stance, ready to receive his first strikes, basically. I'll let you go as long as you want, my friend, since you win.
Yeah, just as the moves are being ready to be made, he kind of sees that twitch in Henri's legs and his arms, signaling his readiness to strike. He reaches back in with his left hand into the jacket of his coat pocket, taking out the scrap of painting again. And he shoves it down through the middle of the scrap of painting onto his sword and just kind of laughs as he does it, looking right at you.
And that definitely spurs Henri into coming on strike after strike, probably more recklessly than he otherwise might. Pure hatred and anger in his eyes and despair.
Yeah, as the blows kind of come furiously down, John would kind of be defensively kind of parrying them away with his sword. Come on, Henri, where is your smile? You said to always smile. I want to see you smile. As he's just kind of deflecting these rage blows that are coming at him.
I will give you a red smile.
You see, when you spent all that time smiling, partying, amassing money, festivities, I've been training. And you are lacking. And he'll like deflect the saber down as you overextend with this sword and kind of twist it so that your arm is kind of twisted back behind it. And I'll kick you in the chest, kind of knocking you to the ground and twisting the sword away into the wreckage of the plane.
And the kick in the chest, reminiscent. He has a momentary flashback of that first time that they ever met and touched or made contact. Yeah. Perhaps the first of these memories that flashes through his mind as we play back through the scenes during their duel.
And part of it almost seems to stir in his own mind. He can remember being trapped within his own armor, lying down after being kicked, the raging battle, the cries, everything. And then as there's another crash of lightning and thunder that illuminates, they'll take a piece of plain wreckage, like a pipe or something that's been jagged, that's been out. They'll take it and he'll jab it down through your chest and into the ground below, pinning you to the ground as he'll put his foot up on your chest.
Blood comes from his mouth, but he knows he won't die from this wound.
John will reach down where you've coughed up the blood, and he'll smear it up on either side of your face in a smile. Then he'll take up his sword and, like an executioner, come down. As there's the dull thud.
And thus ends nearly coming up to a millennia of a person. As Jean Benet takes the head of Henri Manet.
John will take the scrap of painting off from the sword. He'll actually rip it off the side so that it tears and just crumple it up and throw it into the plain wreckage. As he wipes his sword off and puts it away, his face is like smiling, like a grin, a twisted grin, a grin that may have come from his friend Shinji, who's now part of him. But his eyes will be crying slightly small pieces of tears as he's pulled into two. The personalities at war, unable to decide a victor even within himself. Part of him wanted peace more than anything, but it is not his time yet, as he reaches down to take the essence of yet another man.
And an overwhelming, perhaps more than any other quickening you've received prior, is adding to your own sense of longing for peace and an end, is an overwhelming sense of relief and finding peace and an end that is coming from Henri, and just makes it all the more sour that you've not yet found your own peace. Oh man, what an end.
Oh, man. Way to go, guys. Holy
How you doing
shit.
there, Jeff?
That's a tough one.
Oh man, that was so great at the end with the Shinji thing. That just makes so much sense, and that was beautifully done.
Yeah, I have to echo that. That was, oh man, you guys have done just such a really good job of not only navigating kind of the where and the when that you guys have been, but also like what it's done to these people. Like this, not only the length and breadth of the life, but like the stuff that we've uncovered from the first, sessions that we played through, the first matches. You guys did a really good job of kind of bringing all that stuff in and weaving it all in together so that it still makes sense and that it still plays an important part in like what you have become.
Yeah, absolutely. It came together, like, again, organically, as all of these have, but it just in such a sort of satisfying way all the way along, and the culmination at the end was just so good. I was mindful of not being too heavy-handed with including the Leopold stuff, but I think it was a really great, obviously it was a huge part of Henri's 800-year life,
Sure.
but I think it worked really well. Like, it wasn't too heavy-handed in there, and we still had very much our own story between Henri and Jean, and that little touch, Jeremy, at the masquerade ball when you closed the scene with Leopold looking on, that was just ace.
Yeah, it was great.
Yeah, I think there was just enough mentions of the relationship to understand that it was something that was key and important to Henri, and ultimately it kind of bringing Henri down, in the end, as the dice, told the story. But I think it, like I said in the chat, it made really, really good sense because, John's betrayal happened, 40 years, 50 years prior.
Yeah.
And yours was, maybe within the decade.
Yeah.
And the relationship that Henri had with Leopold was so much more intimate than it was between John and Shinji. So
yeah, absolutely, yeah, and longer, you know, even just for the length of it. Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. But yeah, it was a different, obviously, kind of relationship too. Yeah.
So so it was a lot more raw. So it makes sense that would cause you to lose sight of, you know, kind of what you were doing and what was going on, and end up being your downfall.
Absolutely, yeah. I love the fact as well that I mean, yeah, as devastating as it would be anyway, you know, being forced in both of our cases, being forced to take the life of our friend or our, you know, by that point enemy or whatever, but someone who we had such a relationship with in our life, that's bad enough. But then the fact that we then get all of their memories and all, you know, or we absorb their being is just this extra layer, this extra dynamic, which
especially
worked really well, how we played with that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, especially for John, who was like at the end of his relationship with Shinji, like they could not have been further apart as people. So like taking on Shinji's essence was actually, despite the power that it gave him, was much more of a burden than it was a boon. Like having to now like to live such a doubtless life, to have such a solid sense of purpose for so long, and then to take in this like opposing essence to yourself, which then is now fighting for control as part of you, like to then like be suddenly confronted with all this like lack of conviction now that's come with it. I think like I tried to get into that headspace, but it's difficult, man, to try to understand.
I think you did a great job. It reminds me a lot actually of like The Taint, like seeing some of these L5R games, Legend of the Five Rings, like how it's kind of just this thing that sort of takes you over, like it's now sort of part of your being that you're fighting against, right? It's like, yeah. And to some extent, Henri got a similar thing from Leopold, but although nowhere near to the degree that Shinji had. Like Shinji reminds me of the comedian from Watchmen. Like he's just insane.
Yeah, like I genuinely think like part of John in that fight wanted to give up and let you kill him or to lose the battle, but there was just too much else in there for him to be able to do it. I think in a way he envies that you're the one who's gone. It'd be interesting to mix that in later on down the road.
Yeah, you got a lot of layers and facets to to wrestle with now, man. Because as we saw at the very end, like you've got all that, and then sprinkled on top of that, you've got Henri's final sort of feelings of final relief, which you don't yet have yourself.
Yeah, it's going to be really, really interesting to see what the other half of all of this is going to be and what it's going to bring to the final round of this tournament.
Oh man, yeah, I'm looking forward to rewatching the first two from the first heat, and then ahead of watching this next round. And then, oh man, the finale is going to be so good as well.
Yeah, I can't wait to see how this whole thing is going to shake out. This has been just an absolute joy to be a part of in every way, to see the others and also to be able to be a part of it. Like, it does such an incredible job at like with the way that you've set up the scenes and with the way that the system just works in general, of like being able to create such vivid experiences with so little. Like I'm amazed at how much that this system creates with how little that it actually has to do with anything.
Yeah, I agree.
It's really cool.
Definitely,
that's the thing that really struck me a lot playing it for the first time. Like you said, it's just there's almost nothing to the system itself. There's almost nothing to the rules. There's almost nothing to the mechanics, but it still brings just as much, if not more, role playing than almost any other game system I've ever played. It somehow seems to be inherent and, like Keel said, organic. You know, almost it just seems to almost write itself, like through the course of things.
Definitely, I think like having the prompts gives it that strong element of necessity is the mother of invention. It's like it drives things just enough, or sort of frames things just enough, certain things have to happen or cannot happen. Like in this case, like we can't properly die until the end. But yeah, as someone who struggles and is still very much trying to get more practice with setting a scene and pulling things out of nothing and that kind of stuff, having someone to riff off, and then once we've sort of got it there, the scene just unfolds. It's so good. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and having having no restriction is actually usually more damning on creativity than having a little bit of corralling. At least I found. So it definitely helps kind of get you at least headed in a direction that helps at least get your gears going towards an end. Well, gentlemen, thank you very, very much. That was another fantastic match. This has been such a joy to sit here and kind of watch unfold. It's like I said, it's really unique being the GM in a game like this, because I'm so used to having my hands in the mixture so much more, and it's a good practice for me even to just be able to sit back and just completely leave my hands out of it and just let you guys take it and run with it. Obviously, I can't help myself in a few situations, but I try to relegate that to the chat as much as I can. But yeah, I am so pleased that I picked such strong players for this tournament. You guys have done a phenomenal job every step of the way, and I can't wait to see what's going to happen next. So for those of you who have been watching, I appreciate it from the bottom of my heart, whether you tune in live or whether you may be watching at a later point. So this series will continue. As a matter of fact, the next episode, the next match, will take place on the Sunday after this game. So in about 5 days, give or take, from now, that will be between Jason Smith and Alan Holloway. Yeah, I can't wait to see how that one pans out. And we'll get our other finalist that will meet in the finale against Mr. Jeff Doty. So I will pass it to you, gentlemen, so that you can do your outros. And then we'll call it a night. So, Keel, why don't you go ahead?
Yeah, thank you once more. Echo all of your sentiments. It's been just an incredible series so far, and obviously it's only just going to keep getting better with the last couple of matches to go. It's, as I'm sure with yourself, Jeremy, it's turned out to be not at all what I expected in a lot of ways, and it's just so many awesome stories have been told each session. And yeah, this one, the first of the two where they sort of interweave, I'm so keen to see this next one between Jason and Alan. Brief apology again for my technical difficulties, and shame as well that I couldn't stick around in the YouTube chat. So I'm going to go check the live chat afterwards and see how many people were rooting for Jeff and how many were rooting for me. Carry that into my associations in the AbTab group on Facebook moving forward. But no, just I enjoyed the session so much. Well done to Jeff for winning and for just making it awesome, and yourself as well, Jeremy. Yeah, I'm Keel Adam. I have a fresh YouTube channel which I intend to start putting stuff up soon. Some live plays, maybe a bit of video blog stuff as well. Lots to do with RPGs and some other parts of my life. And yeah, as soon as my wife and I finish getting our house ready to sell, then I'll be able to put some time into that. So hopefully soon in the new year. Thank you all.
Hell yeah, man! I'm excited to see what you're gonna do. I've only been able to play with you a couple of times, though our circles have run around each other for some time now. So it was awesome to get you into a game finally, even if it's not one where we get to interact a lot. The road's been paved, so that'll happen.
It's been awesome. Oh, yeah. And I've talked a big game on the AdTab Facebook group about planning to run a Momentum one-shot. So I'll be looking to do that sometime soon.
Dude, that excites me so much to hear. I want somebody
Love
else
that
to get
stuff.
their hands in that, see what they do with it. Yes, the channel that he mentioned, you can find the link to that in the description down below, as well as the one that Jeff is sure to mention. Go check out their channels, give them subscriptions, likes, send them fan mail, flowers, chocolates, all those kinds of things. All right, Jeff.
Yeah, I mean, this has been everything that everyone has said already and more. Just an absolute joy to be able to be a part of. Hard to ask for much of a better opponent than Keel. Been playing with him for a long time now. Actually, he was the little known fact. He was the first person that I ever played with in AbTab, or it was in the group of first people that I ever played with in AbTab. And I've loved playing with him ever since. So I'm glad to kind of be seeing him around more these days, especially to have been able to draw swords here. And yeah, Jason in the chat and part of the Highlander as well was part of that game too. Just an absolute joy of an opponent to have. Fantastic storyteller and player in his own right. So shout out to you, Keel, for being such a great opponent, and of course for Jeremy for hosting this. I have my own YouTube channel where I run stuff. I'm going to be running a game probably next week, barring some potential schedule issues, a weird Harbinger thing. So be on the lookout for that if that's your thing. And yeah, also I do a podcast with Jeremy here as well as Chad Nick, called The Dudes of Yore. We have 5 episodes out so far. Soon-ish, give or take another week or two, we're going to be recording our next episode, which will be very cool. I'm looking forward to that one, and I'll try to get it out pretty soon after we record it. That's my promise this time around for being so bad last time. So that'll be really cool. So keep an eye out for that as well. And yeah, this was amazing, and I can't wait for the other semifinals to be Jason and Alan is a match of titans and legends of the group. So that'll be amazing, and I'll be happy to face off against either one of them.
Absolutely. Well, everybody, I'm exhausted. that is one of the great things about these games is there's not a lot that it asks of me, which has been really nice. I've been able to manage to get like 7 sessions, or I will have had like 7 sessions out of basically like 1 session's worth of prep, which is really great as a GM. But they are still emotionally exhausting to even be on the sidelines of, and I wouldn't have it any other way, honestly. It's been just pure joy. So until next time, may your dice roll high and your snacks always be within reach.